Over the last decade and a half, the Taubman Symposia has established an international reputation for its unique blend of interdisciplinary programs devoted to Jewish history, religion, culture, and identity. Since 1997, it's brought over 100 world-renowned figures, writers, artists, scholars, theologians, documentary filmmakers, political leaders, and social activists to our campus and community. And befitting the place it occupies in a public institution of higher education, the symposia was conceived from the very outset as being both secular and ecumenical. Thus, when we first applied for a grant to fund this series from the Herman P. and Sophia Taubman Foundation, the goal was to present free public events highlighting those aspects of the Jewish experience that are universal in nature. And since at that time, the Jewish calendar read 5,758 years, I figured there would be plenty of examples on which we could draw. While the Taubman Symposia has given students, faculty, and community members of every religion an unrivaled opportunity to explore the meaning of Judaism, it has also provided people of different faiths or no faiths a prism through which to view their own history, traditions, and beliefs in a new light. As a way of promoting deeper understanding between student leaders who belong to Muslim and Jewish campus organizations, each academic quarter, we've been inviting them to luncheons with distinguished guest speakers that are aimed at promoting civil and respectful dialogue. The first luncheon took place in the fall quarter of 2009, and it featured David Makovsky of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy Studies and Raith Alamari of the American Task Force on Palestine, both based in Washington. The luncheon dialogues immediately became a model that has been adopted or emulated on college campuses around the country. And by all accounts, these luncheon dialogues are helping very gradually to build ties between Jews and Muslims and to transform the atmosphere in which the Middle East conflict is being examined here at UCSB. If the impact of the Taubman Symposia was originally confined here to our local campus and community, today its reach is truly global. Yesterday I received the latest statistics from the University of California television station documenting the number of times that our symposia videotapes have been downloaded from its website. The figure totals 1,184,000. A staggering number. Moreover, the figure doesn't include the much larger number of times that these videos have been viewed on satellite and cable networks, both in the United States and worldwide. Clearly, when you address the Taubman Symposia in Santa Barbara, you are speaking to the world and influencing people worldwide.
First, I was asked to discuss what led me to be involved in integrating Arabs into the mainstream of Israeli economy. Later, I'm going to discuss why I think it's important for Israel, and I'll be followed by Helmi, who will describe. Helmi is the guy you've seen in the video presentation. He's going to elaborate on the particular specific programs the center has been performing for the last 20 years. I live in Tel Aviv. I'm married. I have 3 kids. My 2 boys serve in the army in elite units. My daughter's going to join them in a few months. And when I look at the reasons which led me to be involved in the integration of Arabs into the mainstream in Israel, I've identified 2 factors. One is my home upbringing and school, and the second is my professional career and strategy. I grew up in a religious, traditional home in Tel Aviv. My parents were traditional, and they've instilled Jewish value to me, and they've sent me to religious school. And I was taught to believe the Jews are special, not in terms of having more rights, but in terms of having more obligations. The Jews should seek justice. the Jews are responsible to correct wrongs, and that the real Jew should work toward tikkun olam, a correction of the world. When I grew up, Israel was small, fragile, and we were also taught that it was our responsibility, the responsibility of each and every one of us, to protect Israel and to make sure it was on the right track. So I grew up with these values, which led me to be more sensitive, more careful in looking at injustice, inequality, and to the poor and the disadvantaged. My mother, Judith, was born in Tel Aviv to a religious family. She participated in the War for Independence in '48, and she didn't share my political views. But when thieves broke into her house in Herzliya, where she left, and after she left for Tel Aviv, she told me, you know, poor thieves, there was nothing for them to take. And on her dying bed, when it was very difficult for her to talk, she heard that the United States have elected a black president, and she was elated. With tears in her eyes, she'd say, I've never expected that I'd live to see such a day. God bless the Americans for voting for electing a black president. So I had these values instilled in me from home. And I feel a special obligation, being a Jew, to take care of these things. A second influence, which I identify, is my professional career in strategy. I worked in strategy, M&A, and private investments. And many lessons can be drawn from strategy, but in this context, strategy taught me that it's important to identify the underlying forces behind the truth, behind the current situation, which begins to work before you identify them. And if you don't really identify these forces, you may end up being surprised. It's not good enough that the present looks good and everything looks fine. In many corporate settings, I was exposed to examples of this kind of, relying too much on present situation leads to difficulties, and obviously I cannot discuss such an examples. But now it's Sukkot, so I can discuss another example from Israel history. After the 6 Days War, 1967, in which Israel fought with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, Israeli army reached the Suez Canal. Almost immediately started an attrition war between Israel and the Egyptians, each shelling the other across the canal. The Israeli army was impatient, so after some time Israel decided to use its overwhelming air force superiority and start bombing the western part of the Suez Canal, the Egyptian side. I was young at the time, but for some reason I recall an article wrote by a guy named Avneri, and he was just a reserve corporal, and he wrote that Israel's military strategy was based on air force superiority. But if after the 6 Days War, in which Israeli Air Force destroyed the Arab air forces in a few hours in the beginning of the war, the Egyptians didn't learn that they have to protect themselves from our airplanes, what we're doing now is very dangerous for us, because if we'll keep on delivering home the message that they are exposed to our Air Force, eventually what they'll have to do is arm themselves with anti-aircraft missiles. And then, he wrote, this reserve corporal, that in the next war, Israel will find it very difficult to lead the war in the way it is used to, where it controls the sky. Fast forward to 1973, October, it's Sukkot. Yom Kippur war started. Israel was surprised. I was on leave from my compulsory service, and I wasn't called to service, and I was certain, like most Israelis, that everything's going to be okay. And the reports in the media saying the situation is stable, there's not too much to worry about. A few days into the war, I heard from a friend whose parents were friends with the then chief of staff that the situation was awful and that Israel was under real danger. So I found my way to volunteer into a parachutist unit, which went into Sinai on Sukkot, the same day of my birthday, October 14th. And it's not like here in the States when you go to Iraq or to Afghanistan, it's a long trip. It's just less than an hour flight, and you're there in the middle of real hell. And we took from the airport and into the reduction of the Suez Canal, and then we stopped, and then the commander said, get ready and be prepared, and then he asked my friend and me to be responsible for anti-aircraft machine gun. So I said, what the heck, we control the sky, so nothing to worry about. 10 minutes later, Egyptians' Mirage jet fighter circled over us, and then he buzzed and began to shoot at us. I was looking for Israeli planes to protect me, but there were none. So then we had to shoot like mad and then dig foxholes, and it was really, really scary, and it was really, really shocking. And when I looked at the Suez Canal, which is not very far, I've seen that scenario. The Egyptians really did that. They've learned the lesson. They've armed themselves with masses of anti-aircraft missiles. And I've seen too many Israeli F-4 and other planes, trying to cross the Suez Canal and being shot down by these missiles. So that taught me a lesson, that things have to be thought up very, very thoroughly. And if one misses something important, although the situation at the present looks fantastic, eventually someone is going to pay a very dear price, and sometimes it can almost kill you, like what happened to me in Sukkot in the Yom Kippur War. So these were the influences which led me in that direction, but without meeting Arabs or seeing Arabs, I wouldn't have been involved in the Center for Jewish Arab Economic Development. And growing up in Tel Aviv, like I did, we never happened to meet Arabs, never really have an opportunity to talk with them. So a few years later, I was in Boston, Harvard, and I went to the Center for International Affairs there, with Shimon Peres, who later became Prime Minister, and now he's the President of Israel. He was off duty at the time, and he was speaking there. And a few East Coast professors who were giving him a hard time. And I was standing there by the side, and I found myself in a group of three. On one side was a guy I didn't know, his name was Shukri. He's a PhD student from Ma'ilya, that's in the North Galilee. On my left side, there was another Arab, Seri, PhD student from East Jerusalem. I never met them before, but in that context of a Middle Eastern being isolated in that university city, the three of us, without knowing each other beforehand, felt like we were almost from the same village. So when I came back to Israel, I began to visit with Shukri in Arab villages in town. And I was exposed to the difficulties Arab university graduates had in finding jobs, finding employments, getting into the high-tech sector, which was very limited at the time. And most of them, unfortunately, had to find jobs as teachers and educators. I witnessed the frustration, the anger, the accusation, and the blaming. And I also saw at the time that in a few of the cases, it wasn't just discrimination, there were particular personal reasons which would have prevented these people from getting whatever they wanted. But when there is an environment where by discrimination is so prevalent, one tends to load everything on this. I also went to visit Seri in East Jerusalem. Seri comes from a leading established Palestinian family. And we discussed the need of the Palestinians to start to develop the business infrastructure and economic institutions on the way to an eventual state or entity, not unlike what the Zionists and the Jews had done for decades before the establishment of Israel. And we discussed it, and I also brought friends from the government for these private discussions. And I was exposed to the difficulties and hardship and the obstacles which the military occupation and the military law was imposing on the Palestinian capacity to develop the economy and business institutions. And I was also exposed that that was not 100% of the explanation, that certain mentalities and habits and family relations also prevent certain sectors in the Arab society from developing the business and the economy in the way with which we are familiar. But when there is a discrimination and there is an occupation, again, it's easy to blame everything on this. Now these reasons led me to be involved in what I'm involved now, the Center for Jewish Arab Economic Development, and it's important to emphasize I'm going to talk about the Israeli Arabs, not about the Palestinians and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and the Gaza, talking about Israeli citizens of Arab origin, which constitute 20% of the population in Israel. And I posed three questions. One, is there a problem with the integration of the Arabs into the economy in Israel? Second question, is this totally by design? And the third question, is the situation compatible with the long-term interest of Israel? My answer is yes to the first question. There is a problem with the integration of the Arabs into the economy. To the second question, no, it's not necessarily just by design. Some of the elements are not Arab-specific. And third, a resounding no. The situation is definitely incompatible with the long-term future and survival of Israel, the way I see it. Let's get back to the first question. Integration of Arab in the Israeli economy as of now. There is a problem. The Arab are not integrated into the economy, and worse, they are being increasingly marginalized. The rate of participation of Arabs in the workforce is 40% of the Arabs participate in the workforce, as opposed to 60% in the non-Arab population in Israel. Arab women, the rate of participation is even worse, 19%, as compared to 60% in Jewish women participation in the workforce. In the Galilee, Arab women participation in the workforce is 16%. Women participation, Jewish women's participation is 61%. And we're talking about similar sized population, around 200,000. One can say maybe it's because they're Arabs. But if we look at Arab countries, in the Gulf countries, it's over 20% participation in workforce. In Syria, the rate of participation of women in the workforce was over 30%, and in Tunisia, 35%. So we, the Israelis, cannot blame it just on tradition. 75% of the Arabs live in Arab villages and towns. Most of them don't have zoning. It's very difficult to build there. Most of them have no industrial zones. In Israel, it is very important to have a government-approved investment status when you build a manufacturing operation or you want a beneficial tax status on your business. Most Arab townships and villages do not enjoy preferential tax status. Most Arabs do not participate in the growing sectors of the economy. They are left in local, slow-growing segments of the economy. The OECD, it's an organization of the leading economies in the world, an organization which Israel has joined after many years, just last year. It says, okay, and I'm quoting, okay, the level of inequality and poverty in Israel is among the highest in the OECD. Now, OECD is not just the United States and Sweden. It also includes countries like Turkey and Mexico. And I grew up believing that a Jewish state should have special values, and to hear that Israel has among the highest rates of poverty and income inequality among a large group of advanced countries, that's very shocking, and the situation of the Arabs is a major contributor to this fact. So now we know that the Arabs are not integrated, and they're not being more integrated. On the other hand, they are being pushed out of the mainstream of the economy. So the second question, is this by design? Did anybody make a conscious decision that they should be left out of the economy? So it is true that certain of the elements are government controlled, like the fact that no new Arab town has been built since the establishment of Israel, the lack of preferential investment status, the lower level of investment in education and infrastructure per person as opposed to the non-Arab sector, the lax enforcement of non-discrimination laws and regulations. So these were powerful factors controlled by the government, which doesn't help the integration of Arabs. And the integration of Arabs was not on the government agenda or priorities just until recently. But there were other factors operative in the Israeli economy, which also led to dire consequences to the Israeli Arabs. And those were globalization and reduction of tariffs, the growth of the high-tech sector in Israel, foreign employees in the Israeli workforce, and the changed role of government in the economy and society. Globalization and reduced tariff, as you know, in the States as well, lead to increased imports of certain products which are labor-intensive and closing down labor-intensive industries. Until the trend of globalization started in Israel around 15 years ago, Arabs were large participants in the workforce and as business owners in sectors such as the textile. This segment has totally evaporated since globalization, reduction of tariffs and imports of cheap textile, mainly from China and other Asian countries. Now that wasn't done in design against the Arabs, but the consequence was the extremely low rate of Arab women employment we see in general and in the Galilee. A second element was that what grew in Israel was the high-tech industry, on which we Israelis are very proud. We did a magnificent job. But we have to keep in mind that the high-tech is based on a lot of contacts and background in the Israeli Defense Forces, in Special Intelligence Unit, in the defense establishment. Most of the Israeli high-tech business is still in communication and IT, which still has some relevance and bearing upon what's being done in defense institutions. It's less of internet startups and this kind of things which are disassociated from establishment. So the high-tech has grown very significantly in Israel, both in terms of employment, value creation, status creation, but the Arabs are hardly there. There are just a few hundreds of Arabs working in their profession in the Israeli high-tech. The explanation is not blatant discrimination, nor that anyone made a decision that the Arab won't participate. Part of the difficulties are language, difficulty to write CV, hesitancy in job interviews. A lot of work in the high-tech sector is based on clubby relations, and you meet your friends in Israel, in the army. And the Arabs are not called up to serve in the Israeli army, so they have nothing of that network of collection, which is very strong in Israel in general, in the business community in general, but particularly in the high-tech sector. A third element is the foreign workers in the Israeli workforce. Globalization and reduction of tariff is not just an Israeli phenomenon, it happens worldwide. It is known that when it happens, low-skilled workers find refuge in what's called non-tradable sectors, such as services, construction, agriculture, where you cannot import people from far away. You cannot import the products from far away. Due to very powerful lobbies of these industries, Israel has adopted an almost unique, extreme liberal policy of importing foreign workers, and in 2006, almost 10% of Israeli workforce consisted of foreign employees, mainly from the Philippines, Thailand, and recently African refugees, mainly from Somalia, who are being smuggled through Sinai. Again, this policy was not designed to be anti-Arab, but those who suffer for her are the weak, and mainly the Arabs. Fourth element was the changed role of government in Israeli society and economy. Not unlike the United States and Thatcher's United Kingdom, Israel has reduced substantially the role and participation of the government in the economy. And that had an impact on the Israeli Arabs on a few levels. First, there were less services to benefit from. Second, many of them used to work as government employees providing these services, and they've lost this possibility. But what's not less important is that while the government reduced its participation in the economy, relations with the government became far more important for business. The issues of privatization and managing regulations are key to most large Israeli businesses. Many of the large Israeli business groups built a large part of the share based on assets acquired at reasonable prices from the Israeli government. Others managed successfully regulatory dialogue with the government. Arabs and Arab businessmen and Arab businesses are not strong enough, they're not financed enough, they don't have access to capital markets, they don't have contacts with the government, so they cannot participate in this game. But when the Israeli economy changes, and the large economic and business groups becomes more dominant in the economy, and the other businesses are being pushed aside, the Arabs are being pushed aside as well, again, without any intention of pushing aside particularly Arabs. Last summer in Israel, we had what we call Summer of Protest. I don't know if any of you have seen it on TV, have seen the tents in the boulevards in Tel Aviv, but it was very unique, very special, where it started by young, highly educated, middle-aged Jews from around Tel Aviv who said that enough is enough. Life is too difficult for us with our education, with our background, and something fundamental should be changed about the way Israel manages its economy. The message was not unlike things we heard about from Spain a few months before, not unlike what we hear about Occupy Wall Street nowadays in New York and the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has nominated a committee headed by Professor Trachtenberg, and they've provided their recommendation, which the Israeli government has formally accepted last week, I believe. And Trachtenberg was very, very, very clear. He said that privatization failed, that the economy is not managed competitively, that the government favored certain sectors, large unions, certain cartels, and that there are strong monopolies and cartels who managed to find a way through regulation to get the way done, while having millions of Israelis being excluded from the game, and therefore he suggested to change a few things and to change the agenda. Nothing anti-Arab about this, but when millions are excluded and pushed aside, the Arabs, who had been initially weak politically and economically, are getting hurt once more. So as we see, the Arabs are not integrated, they are being increasingly marginalized. Some of the factors are government control, but many of the other factors are not Arab specific, and they're just major trends, maybe problematic, of the Israeli economy and society. Which brings me to the third question. Okay, there is a problem. We all know in life there are many problems. How much of a problem is it for Israel? How relevant it is for the survival of Israel? Now the answer is that it is a big problem for Israel economically and non-economically. The rate of participation in Israeli workforce now is 55%, as compared to 65% in the United States. That's before the big unemployment issues in America. That's a huge difference in terms of lost productivity, which is not just lost by the Arabs themselves, but Israel as a country loses a large chunk of its potential production and GNP due to the lack of participation of the Arabs in the workforce. 1/3 of Israel's children are under poverty line. I'm repeating, a Jewish country, 1/3 of the children are under poverty line. And the situation of the Arabs in Israel is a large contributor to that. In Israel, there are two sectors which don't fully participate in the workforce for different reasons. They constitute around 30% of population and the workforce age now. They are the Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, and Arabs. It's 2/3 Arabs now and 1/3 Haredim. We don't deal with the Haredim, we don't discuss them, so I won't get into that. But again, the OECD raised the red flag and says now the non-Haredim and non-Arab share the workforce is around 71%. In around 15 years, their share is going to be 61%, meaning that the share of the population which does not participate in the workforce is going to increase to almost close to 40%. Now that's unacceptable in any way you're going to think about it, because again, those who are hurt are not just those who are not employed, but if these are the proportion, it is a national problem, it is a threat, and it can be a drag on the national GNP, which can go down, and even on GNP per capita, which can go down. Therefore, the lack of integration of the Arabs into the economy is accepted as a major threat to the Israeli short-term economic policy and medium-term economic level of economic activity. But I believe it is not just an economic issue. I think that in order for Israel to survive in the long term, it has to be wholeheartedly accepted by its neighbors, Arabs and Muslims. And the way Israel treats its Arabs is looked at very carefully by our neighbors. They want to sense who we are, they want to know who we are, they want to see how we feel towards Arabs. And it is my feeling that as long as they feel that the Arabs are not really integrated, accepted as equal in society, that may make it much more difficult to gain their acceptance to our survival in the Middle East. There are the questions of what comes first, peace or economic development. It is true that once Israel achieves peace with its neighbors, the situation of Israeli Arabs can change dramatically. They can be the economic and business bridge between Israel and the region. And it will be much more difficult to form Jewish Arab or Israeli Arab economic partnership when you have peace. But I claim that it's the other way around as well. That without economic cooperation, that without economic mutual respect, it's going to be much more difficult to attain real peace in our area. We also have to keep in mind that in most communities, Jews are a minority. Israel is the only community where Jews are the majority. And being a minority for most of the ages and in most of the community, I think it's important for us as Jews, beyond the concept of decency and justice, that Israel will treat its minority in a very decent, fair way, which will be clear to all. I think that's the interest of the Jews worldwide, that Israel will be perceived to be a fair and just country. You have to understand, in Israel, the experience of running a country and being responsible for the community, it's a new experience. We as Jews are not used to this. We don't have hundreds of years of legacy of know how to run a country, and sometimes we make mistakes, and in this context, I guess we can need some help. I've learned from history that in too many cases, the Jews lived wherever they lived, and they were not integrated into the community, and they didn't have good enough relations with the community, nothing of their fault, but they were there because they had the protection and the guarding of a king, of a knight, of a foreign power, of whomever. But what I've learned from Jewish history is that things change. And what I learned from strategy is that things change. And one day the king is not going to be there, and one day the superpower is not going to be there, it's going to shift its interest. And from Jewish history we can learn that if this happens, we stand naked as we are with the locals. And if we didn't find our way to their hearts soon enough, when our protection, when our guardians are not there, sometimes we are in for nasty surprises. And it frightens me a lot that too many of us tend to repeat the same mistakes on a personal level. It's very difficult to change personally, but also communities find it difficult to change their ways. And I'm very cautious and worrying that Israel is not working hard enough to leverage its position of power and prosperity of this day to do the most important thing, to my opinion, which is to find its way now to the hearts of the Arabs in our region. And I think it's very important to integrate the Arabs, to make them full partners, to enable us to live in our area, in our country, in the medium term, successfully. Now, are we the only ones who think that this is a big problem with Arab integration into the economy? The answer is no. As I've indicated recently, the government have made a few decisions, and now integrating the Arabs is on the national agenda. The government has established a special authority for economic development of the Arabs in Israel. It is also declared in the center's annual conference and implemented a few years later, establishment of a private equity fund dedicated to the Arab sector. The government is devising all kinds of programs to try and help amend this problem. Also, Zionist organizations begin to take notice. The Joint is active in Arab employment, and Jewish federations are increasingly active and interested in activities such as ours. So is this enough? Can we say the problem is solved? I don't think so. It's our experience in Israel, it's our experience worldwide, that the governments are slow to react. They are slow to change direction, especially as there's no immediate and clear danger of too big to fail banks collapsing tomorrow mornings. And the Arab issue has no constituency, has no political leverage, that doesn't control the future of the next government or the next coalition. So although government has declared that's important for Israel, and almost any long-term planning process you can read about Israel identifies integration of Arabs as one of the top 2 or 3 priorities, there's still a lot to be done. I've worked with 2 ministers, and very few people appreciate how bounded and constrained they feel by budget, by government policies, by expenditure which they're committed to. So in order to do things now, it needs not just government decision, but it needs the prodding and the assistance and the resources and the know-how of strong NGOs and of organization here and worldwide. I've mentioned the OECD before. The OECD says if Israel, and he was referring mainly to the issue of Arab integration into the Israeli workforce and economic forces. The OECD has identified that there's a change of direction. But it says that if the policy and practices are not going to be implemented successfully in the very near future, the consequences are going to be devastating. So we want to avoid these devastating consequences, so we do our best we can, and have been doing it for quite some time. And Helmi is going to describe the activities which the center takes in this direction. I frankly feel that now there is a new environment. The economic narrative in Israel is different. It's less naked, brute capitalism. It tries to identify weaknesses. The government realizes there is a problem. Everyone on his right mind, regardless of what his political affiliation is in Israel, identifies this as a core issue. There are NGOs active in this field. I really think that with the right commitment, we can do a good job in integrating the Arab and protecting the future of Israel economy and Israel itself. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Let me now introduce one of the driving forces behind the Center for Jewish Arab Economic Development, which has sought, as you know, to foster joint Jewish and Arab business partnerships. Helmi Kittani has received the major recognition from the Israeli Knesset for his contributions to the civic life of Israel, for his activities to promote coexistence within Israel. And as well, he has received the New Israel Fund of the United Kingdom's Human Rights Award. Please now welcome Helmi Kittani.
My name is Helmi Kittani, social change agent. Arab, Israeli, Muslim, sound complicated, but I can live with it well. Actually born, grew up, and live in Baka El Garbiya, an Arab town in the center of Israel. And it's important to mention before I present our organization, our activities, personally didn't face discrimination. I didn't face in my career. When I was a student in Tel Aviv University in the Faculty of Economic Studies in the 70s, my head was hunted by headhunters of Bank Hapoalim. Bank Hapoalim is the largest commercial bank in Israel. So personally got my opportunities, chances, a good career, but during or while my work in Bank Hapoalim, I actually met tens or more than tens of Arab young persons, high educated, who really seek to find a good job, to get an equal opportunity for himself. Then I decide, after finishing my job in Bank Hapoalim, I'll contribute and spend energy, time in trying to change or creation more healthy, justice, equal society in my country. Because of that, I joined the Center for Jewish Arab Economic Development in 1992. And then the CJADE is a non-profit organization founded in 1988 by joint Jewish and Arab business persons who believed in and still believe by using business and economic tools and activities, we can really reach and achieve the vision of the founders. Full integrated Arab community into the Israeli society and economy. It was the vision, and the two main goals then and still is promoting economic development in the Arab sector in Israel, within Israel, and the other is encouraging cooperation and partnership between the Jewish and the Arab communities, focusing on, again, on economy and business issues. In the center, we advance our agenda by building networks of Arabs and Jewish persons, people, leaders, who committed to joint economic development, increasing economic opportunities for Arab women by building entrepreneurial skills and courses training by using the whole package of these, I'll explain later, creating viable models that demonstrated the profitability of economic inclusion. And the last one is incubating organizations, national and local organizations within Israel that address the roots of economic inequality between Jews and Arabs. When I joined the center, we conducted research led by Professor Zvi Zussman, very well-known economist in Israel, just to search and to check the reasons of the situation then of the Arab sector, of the underdeveloped sector in Israel, the very high developed country and state. Why in the Arab sector? And not only searching the political or the policies of the government, including the interior reasons. What about the culture? What about region? What about local government or municipalities or authorities, etc. And then we discovered it was a so clear result, a very well-known result. The figure that Eytan Biderman already mentioned, the Arab women are not players, are not active in the field of the economy, not as entrepreneurs, not as business owners, and not as employees. Only 16% of the Arab women participated in the workforce, and as entrepreneurs or business owners or startupists, it's almost was zero. Because of that, we started the very unique unit in our organization called the Women's Unit. And it wasn't easy, especially not in the very traditional communities or places, villages and towns like the south and the Negev, the Bedouin community. So we started in the north more in the what we call the Triangle area and the Galilee area. And we started in promoting more empowering, strengthening, and encouraging Arab women started their own businesses by very unique courses and training, not only in the business issues, not only how to prepare or create business plan or market study, etc. We really deal with the whole self and soft skills and increasing the self the self skills. And we started in a model in very traditional Arab town, very well known, who knows Israel, called al-Fahim. By the way, the mayor or the municipality of al-Fahim belonging the Islamic movement, and we just tried to run a survey between the residents of al-Fahim, focusing on men, what their what they're feeling if we'll start encouraging and support Arab women, Muslim women, traditional Arab women to start their own business and being outside the home, how to deal with the kids, how to deal with the whole cultural issues and maybe religious issues. And we were surprised it was a need. We started when this was need for many Arab families because the statistics shows that the income of Arab family then was almost half of the income of the Jewish family, and it's clear because in the Jewish families, the majority of the Jewish families, more than 60%, both got income. In the Arab community, only the man manufacturing income, the woman was like furniture. Then we started in training courses and supporting by using our loan fund those women to start their businesses, and not only the traditional or the women's traditional businesses, you know, the food, the hair care and the daycares, etc. We are really focusing on high-level businesses like economic consulting, law firms, mediation clinics, etc. And it was really very success project. By less than 10 years, more than 3,000, actually 3,150 new small new businesses owned by women established in the Arab community within Israel by 10 years. And more than 80%, 85% of them survived more than 5 years, actually still exist until today. Creating more, actually almost 6,000 new jobs for Arab women. And then when we started this model or this process, we got more courage, and we started in our model of training Arab women to break the mahsum. Avner, what's mahsum? Barrier, okay, to break it and to accept the idea of going outside the village or the town and getting a job in Tel Aviv and Hedera in the Jewish community. And we started to to prepare a very unique courses. Again, the same model of training, soft skills, how to write CV, how being interviewed by the human resource selector or officer, and it's not easy. And then what the need of the job, she can get to check it. And the next step, actually, and another project I would like to mention, after, you know, woman succeed in her business and survive 5 years and becomes a businesswoman, not entrepreneur, businesswoman, she needs networking, she needs connection, relation to the whole Israel market, how to do it. We started the model of creating the only and first organization called Jasmine. Jasmine is the joint businesswoman organization. Joint means Jewish and Arab businesswomen, including developing local and regional forums or clubs, what we call, for the both sides. And by the way, creating networking and changing ideas, and then maybe starting joint businesses, joint venture between the both sides. And the idea of upgrade the capability or capacity of those women by using the internet as tool for marketing their products. We started the Jasmine portal, or what we call the virtual mall, for small businesses owned by women to get opportunity or tool to sell, to market her product to the Israeli market and the international. And it's really more, by the last 2 years, more than 500 Jewish and Arab women on small businesses, and have many unique products, starting selling their products by the internet. And the idea, not only selling, using the internet, opening their own website and using the whole tools, it's kind of building leadership. All those 3,000 or more than 3,000 became leaders in their community. She was inactive and player in her community. Now she becomes a leader. It's the idea. Because of that, I said social change. It's not only the economy, it's the whole issue of leadership. By law in Israel, developing and starting industrial zones or industrial parks, it's not a private issue, it's public. The initiator is the Israeli government, it's the Ministry for Industry and Trade. And until maybe 5 years ago, more than 99% of the industrial zones within Israel, or the industrial parks, owned by local authorities. The development is governmental, but the ownership, removed to local authorities. And more than 98% of those industrial parks and zones owned by the Jewish local authorities or municipalities, or what we call the regional councils. And then we started with, when Ariel Sharon was the prime minister, we started, you know, just to dream about changing the governmental policy and starting a very special or unique model of creating or establishing a joint industrial zones between Jewish and Arab local authorities in the same clusters, in the same areas or regions. And Ariel Sharon just accept, and we started to mapping the areas, the regions in Israel where we or the Israeli government can implement this idea. And for now, there are 4 new industrial, largest industrial zones owned by Jewish and Arab local authorities. The idea is not just, again, it's not just the economical issues, because when you bring the public players, the local governments, and the private sector, the investors and the business people, and then the employees, the human beings together, working together, dealing together, managing and administrating those areas together, and you can really create a place gathering all of them. You can start of pushing, encouraging people, and building trust between 2 communities living in the same state, the same country, but there is no trust between both of them. And then working together, spending weekends together, and it's the idea. And as you know, in Israel, actually, the poverty in the Arab community is higher than the Jewish, because the local authorities have no income of taxes, because all of them almost have no industrial or businesses in their towns and villages, and they cannot just get budget for services for their community and residents. And because of that, we can help or support those local authorities to increase the public income, the income of the local authorities, creating jobs, as example, in joint employment zones in the Galilee called Bar-Lev, jointly by the city Carmiel, 2 Jewish regional council, Misgav Mate Asher, and 3 Arab villages. We started in the whole idea of training Arab women for jobs we really need in businesses located in those industrial zones. More than 1,000, by the last 1 year only, 1,000 Arab women got, and I'm talking about high educated women, not, we deal with the mid and high educated women. More than 1,000 Arab women got jobs, and again, the salaries of them, it's our condition. It's not, you know, the lowest salaries in the Arab villages. They got salaries, the minimum size of salaries, like the same salaries of Jewish women, because you, again, Eytan mentioned the differences between salaries or capita income of Arab and Jewish. And it's the idea, again, I'm optimistic, but it's a challenge, it's not easy, but by developing those programs or model, we just can approve that we can change the situation. We can really be part of creating a new, again, a new society in Israel. I mentioned I worked in Banca Palim for 20 years, and I know how difficult for Arab entrepreneur to start his own small or his startup in the Arab villages. The commercial bank are not, there is no access to credit for new entrepreneurs for in the commercial bank. There is no guarantees startupists can bring to the commercial bank. Because of that, we started our own loan fund to support those businesses who are already trained and started in the Arab villages. This loan fund called Sulam. Sulam in Hebrew and Arabic, the same word. It's the ladder in English, just, going up step by step. And it's kind of educational program, because it's not easy to change the idea of commercial banks that can really lend for new businesses who have no history credit with the bank. And what about the guarantees? And it's not easy, it's so difficult about the whole issues of real estate in the Arab sector. So we are the guarantor of those loan funds. More than 98% of the loans really, repayments of all of them. And we believe by building the access for credit, we can again approve that commercial bank should continue with this process of encouraging, supporting. It's really not supporting, it's the profitable program for those banks to go ahead and continue. The last projects, when we started 24 years ago, we started in supporting business persons in the Arab community and assisting them. And now, actually, we want to close, kind of circle. There is a very specific program or project led by a non-profit organization called the Zionism 2000 for social responsibility. We actually accepted to transfer the same model of the social responsibility, the community responsibility to the Arab business community. And when we started, we support them. It's the time for them to support their community, to be active, not only contributing money, including volunteerism and social involvement in the whole activities in their community, in their towns, villages, and maybe, supporting entrepreneurs and maybe investing in startups, not only waiting until success exits, and etc. And we hope, to continue to succeed and really to get a hope for those young entrepreneurs not only from the commercial banks, just from their business leaders in their community. I want just to say at the end, we believe that we really influenced the whole decision makers in Israel, including the Israeli government, changing again, Eytan mentioned, we succeeding in bringing more and more business partnership between the private sectors from the both communities. We succeeding in changing mentality and culture in the Arab community, again between men and women, and to continue in our activities, to continue in establishment of models, to approve that we really can change the whole bad and sad situation. We hope we can do it. We believe we can do it. The majority of the Israeli society, Jews and Arab, believe that they can, they want really live each together, creating a society, equal and fair society for all of Israeli citizens. We need your support, your help, and just, encouraging us to continue in our activities. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for the presentation and for the wonderful work that you're doing. We heard many, many wonderful things. The only thing is I can't help wondering whether the problem isn't still much more political than economic. Basically, isn't the problem that there is a Jewish sector and an Arab sector to begin with, for example, education that is essentially separate and not equal? And so you said so beautifully that the goal is that Arabs are treated fairly. Shouldn't the goal be that all people are treated equally?
Okay, I think education is really important to start together, but our mandate as organization is focusing on economic issues. To start today by, the primary schools changing the whole programs, it could take another 20, 30 years. We need to, side by side, there are organizations, there are NGOs, non-profit in Israel, focusing on educational issues, including starting or establishing mixed schools, primary and secondary schools. But I think the impact of our activity is improved, creating more than 10,000 jobs, as example, in these processes. It's unbelievable. We need it today and continue with the education.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank both of you for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you. Informative, balanced, really, really, and in this world in which Hasbara becomes so important and so pervasive, separating out between those factors which are specifically Arab-specific and those that affect workers on the West Bank or in Israel and workers in Toledo, part of the globalization. I have several very, very brief things I'm asking for comments. First of all, could you bring in the political process a bit? I know you're economists and business people. You mentioned that 20% of the Israeli population is Arab. That means that 20% of the Knesset, the parliament, should be Arab, because Arab Israelis do have the right to vote. Yet there are only 5 ministers rather than 24 or 20, 5 members of the Knesset rather than 24, 25. How does that get changed? an Arab bloc of, Israeli bloc of 24, 25 members of the Knesset is the third largest bloc in the Knesset and would be extremely powerful. Secondly, you mentioned the way other Arab countries, surrounding Arab and Muslim countries, look at the treatment of the way Israel is treating its own Arab citizens. I think history shows a distressing lack of interest among the surrounding Arab populations for the Palestinians. In fact, almost a negative, that so long as the Arab Israelis are not integrated and are second-class citizens, there's a weapon to use against Israel. How can that be changed? And finally, I know you were going to be talking about Israel only. Can you talk a little bit about the West Bank? Because substantial changes have been made there in the past year or two, or even more, where policy has changed, and the GDP in the West Bank is up 9% in the past year, which is higher than the increase in Israel, which in a world economy that's a crisis, that's absolutely remarkable. Some of your ideas, I think, have been implemented there. And can you talk about, might as well talk about your success stories as well as the problems. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Ira. The two questions separated between economics and politics, and I'm not sure in Europe this would have been legitimate, because in Europe they do understand that economy is always political economy. We are not a political organization, we are not a partisan organization, therefore we try to distance ourselves to the extent possible from political question. I have wonderful political explanation and great solutions to almost any problem you could going to raise, but that will require a totally different symposium, different context. Now, regarding the Arab parties and Arab members of Knesset, again, I'm not qualified to discuss it, but it is my experience as an Israeli Jew that virtually all the Arabs I met, the major aspiration is to become a full-fledged Israelis. The separatist tendencies are not very strong. Therefore, that's why I think that the potential to succeed in whatever we're trying to do is big. This seemed to me to be consistent with the fact that not all, maybe even not the majority of Arabs emphasize voting just for 100% pure Arab party. But again, I'm not a specialist in Arab politics. From my personal point of view, that makes sense. The second question was regarding the territory, I believe was the third question. The attitude of the neighboring countries, yes. You said that it's your impression that the Arabs really don't care much about Israeli Arabs or the Palestinians. And you say, how is this consistent with my perception that the way we treat Arabs is important to them? And I would dare to say that probably you're correct and I'm correct as well. Because I think that they look at us not because again, and I'm not familiar with their attitudes toward Israeli Arabs, and it's a double view. They look this way, that way. But they're Arabs, and they say the Israelis, the Jews, have their own Arabs. So it's important for them, the way I understand it, I've learned, that to see how the Jews in Israel, the Israelis, treat Arabs, not because they want the Israeli Arabs, the situation of the Israeli Arabs to improve, but if Israel doesn't treat the Arabs as equal, doesn't treat the Arabs as equal to the Jews, doesn't give them full right, that creates fear, not for the future of Israeli Arabs, but to the way that Israel may treat them in the future. Therefore, I don't think Israel will be accepted in the region in the long term unless the Arabs will feel extremely comfortable with us. And that's part of why I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Now, regarding the West Bank, most of our activities are in Israel proper. We've done a few projects in the West Bank trying to leverage our know-how of working with women entrepreneurs, with management training, with Israeli Arabs to the West Bank, and some of them were pretty successful. After the second Intifada, Israelis were prevented by law and administrative orders not to enter the West Bank, therefore we stopped there. I'm not a specialist on the situation in the West Bank. I recall a very moving moment after the first Intifada when Helmi and I went to Dahesh. Dahesh is a refugee camp between Bethlehem and Hebron. Being like me, an Israeli Jew, grew up in Tel Aviv, I know the name Deheshe from security events, from throwing stones, from attacking Israeli security forces, and so forth. After the Oslo Accords, we went there on behalf of the center, and we met the camp leaders. It was a lowly room, you know, half floor below the ground. We sat with two tough people. Every 50 minutes, someone else came. They looked very tough, very rugged, with beards. When we asked, they were previous terrorists, veterans of prisons for many years. And they told us, we were given instructions to work with you, to work with Israel, to work with Israeli companies, to build business. This is a new mission. And I still recall the hope in their eyes, their optimism. They were really certain they were on a different track, and they were ready to commit themselves to the new track. We have to keep in mind that when people are busy working, busy building businesses and partnership, they don't have that much time for other issues. That's also an important reason why I think that what we're doing is very important. Talking about the West Bank, just one last fact, the World Bank issued a report on the situation of the Palestinian economy in the West Bank, and its conclusion was that in order to develop a strong civil society in Palestinian Authority, they have to build a strong private sector. And the situation in the Palestinian territories is so far, according to the just recent World Bank report, that most of the Palestinian economy in the West Bank is based on subsidies and on PA activity and not on a real thriving business sector. So in that sense, the World Bank view of what should be done in the West Bank is not inconsistent with what we think should be done in the Israeli Arab sector.
I was in a Muslim department store last year, and I was surprised to see that there were no women employed there. So at the lingerie counter, there would be a man who would sell things, and I was wondering, has there been any backlash among Muslims if you are empowering Muslim women to work?
You just, you just saw about the exhibition, the trade fair in Tel Aviv port last year. More than 200 Muslim women, just bringing to Tel Aviv area Muslim women from the Galilee, from the Bedouin community, the Negev, the south, driving vans with products to Tel Aviv and selling their products in this trade fair, and really getting the support of their husbands or parents. It's kind of a revolution. It's not the usual situation. I'm not sure about the Muslim museum. Where exactly this museum? What?
A department store. I was.
Where?
Where?
Sorry, in Cairo, Egypt.
In Cairo, Egypt. It's really it's strange. In our activities, in our events, in our conferences, all the time we just now arranging a conference in Herzliya, where our office is located. We suppose more than, again, 300 to 400 women will participate. Half of them Arabs and the majority of them Muslims. By the way, about 70% of the Arab population in Israel are Muslims. So the impact of our activities, not focusing on Muslim, also more focusing on Arab, including Druze, Bedouin, Christian again, and then creating the partnership with the Jewish community.
It's also my impression that the Palestinians were among the two least religious people in the Arab world. In the Arab Muslim world, the Palestinians and the Lebanese. And nothing against religion. Religion is a good thing, but religious extremism is, in many cases, a result of hardship in life and harsh economic situation.
Thanks again also for a great presentation and for the great work that you're doing. I just had two sort of questions I was hoping you could elaborate on a little bit. One of the factors that you mentioned as being sort of contributing to the marginalization of the Arab community that isn't necessarily really within the purview of the government, but maybe a little bit sort of outside forces, was foreign workers. And I was just wondering if you could say a little more about how that has evolved over time and what, if anything, you guys are doing to address that. Is that strictly a political issue, and so you're not doing much work there? And I was also wondering if you could just say a little bit about sort of the divisions within the Arab communities, if you've been doing different things with the Muslim community as opposed to the Druze or Christian Arabs, just about sort of the different activities by, you know, sort of the different sectors of the Arab community.
Okay. About the Lana project, means for us the involvement of business community and the community in their community. I think it's, you know, necessary. Its model was succeeded in the Jewish community. So when non-profit or the third sector, the NGOs. It's a fact, it's not less important or necessary than the governmental and the private sector people. But really it's kind of encouraging Arab young, high educated who are already employee in those businesses to contribute and be volunteers in their community. It's kind of you know, civil service. There is no army service in the Arab community, so it could be a good solution for encouraging and promoting civil activities and community activities in their community, and it's the first. About there is no, you know, we faced a very strange situation when we started to plan establishment of one of the joint industrial zones called Mivo Carmel. Mivo Carmel, located on the Carmel mountain near Haifa. This area, including Moshav, it's a Jewish village, Druze villages, the Dalia Sophia, and Muslim. And we conducted a survey and kind of research to just search the needs of the community there, in the Druze community, the Muslim, and the Jewish in this agriculture village, Yokneam Takhtit. You know, maybe by more than 80% of the needs, the same needs for the three communities. Solution for the kids about social and maybe the daycares, transportation, but the need for participating in the workforce and the manufacturing or just income for her family. But the culture is the same. It's not so differences, not between Muslims, Christian. So there is a need for the whole job seekers with no differences.
Foreign workers.
About foreign workers.
Yeah, we are not an advocacy organization, so therefore we've chosen not to work in terms of advocacy to try and change government policies, although they may be harmful to the Arab population as a byproduct. There are many kinds of policies, some of them I've described before, which may have some impact on the Arabs. We leave it to other organizations, and we try to focus on whatever we do. Our plate is very full at this stage.
Could you tell us a little bit about how the two of you work together? Because I understand, Helmi, you're the executive director, and Eytan, you're the director. I'm just curious about your roles, how you work together, and how, a little bit of how your organization is structured.
Okay, just for now, both of us, Eytan and I, co-directors. Actually, Eytan used to be chairman, you know, until 3-4 years ago. and then you want to help to contribute by half time, and now both of us co-directors. Our board is 12 persons, almost half of them Jewish persons, half of them Arabs. And the staff, more or less the same. We are a small staff, 11 to 12 people. You know, it depends on when and where, but half by half, because we believe implementation of the ideology on your home, it's just, you know, you cannot, the same, you cannot start talk about peace with other countries if in your home you are not implemented it. So the practice. You want to add something about the structure? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, and looking at the situation from a more general point of view, a few weeks ago, United Nations were discussing about the membership of Palestine in the body, and there was a veto from United States, Israel, and some European countries. So I would like to know, what do you think about this veto, and why?
Yeah, I believe,
Like,
that in this context, we can only give our very personal point of view. This is nothing.
Like, you know,
at the center, we haven't yet devised
like
our geopolitical position vis-a-vis this request. But as I remember, there's a perceived threat that the U.S. may veto it, or maybe the other countries, there won't be sufficient majority. Israel is not a member of the Security Council. I don't think Israel has anything to do with it. I believe that each one of us has our own concept of what's the right solution in the Middle East. Not everyone thinks that that's the worst thing in the world for the Palestine to be recognized by the Security Council. But again, that's a matter of debate. I have to remind all of us that Israel and the Israel government and the Prime Minister of Israel is committed to two-state solution and to the establishment of a Palestinian state. So in that sense, the way I understand it, there may be some tactical argument about the Palestinian request, but it is Israel declared, stated national policy that Israel wants to move ahead in the direction of a two-state solution. So, inshallah, we're going to see this solution soon in a peaceful way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you from our entire community here. This has been a very, very interesting presentation that the two of you have given us. And I must say that amidst all the problems that we see in Israel, Palestine, this was a wonderful message of optimism and of cooperation. Thank you very, very much for bringing this to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no choice but to be optimists in the work in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good night.